everyone, and welcome to today's webinar presented by Regulatory Compliance Associates and Avatour. The theme for today's webinar session is preparing for an FDA virtual audit. My name is Jenna Clark, and I will be moderating this webinar. All participants of the webinar have been placed in a mute setting to allow the presenters to speak for the duration of the time. We ask that any questions or comments you may have, please be submitted via the chat box in your Zoom window. All questions will be answered at the end of our webinar during the questions and answer session. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce our host of the webinar. Eric Yanuszewski is the Senior Director of Client Relations at Regulatory Compliance Associates. Eric is helping large and small molecule pharmaceutical and medical device companies worldwide gain market entry into the US. Devin Copley, our co-host, is the CEO and co-founder of Avatour. Devin is an expert on live immersive technology with more than 20 years of experience in online media and virtual reality. At this time, I would like to turn our webinar over to the two presenters, Eric and Devin.
Thanks a lot, Jenna. And thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate you all taking the time. Just a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today here on our agenda. First, we'll talk about what's been happening recently in Washington with regards to the FDA's program funding for inspections and audits, especially overseas. And then we'll talk about how a virtual inspection and a virtual inspection training actually works. What is the process? And then we'll spend some time talking about virtual inspection technology, in particular the Avatour product that we make, and show a demo of how Avatour's 360 capability makes for more effective and efficient remote inspections. And then, of course, we'll have some time for questions and comments. We will be happy to go beyond the allotted time, so please feel free to ask any questions you have. So with that, I will hand off to our FDA expert, Eric, to talk about what's been going on the Hill. Eric?
Thank you so much, Devin, for the introduction. As Devin mentioned, we'll start with the recent House Appropriations Committee updates so we can look into some of the key changes that have impacted drug and device manufacturers facing an FDA inspection. Next slide. All right, so the House Appropriations Committee budget was detailed in the Agricultural, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration and related agencies appropriations bill for the fiscal year 2020 on June 30th of this year. Now, there's a lot of changes in there, but amongst the changes to chemical and tox issues with food and health equity, there's some primary ones that affect drug and device manufacturers and their impending inspections. These are specifically data modernization and enhanced technologies and foreign unannounced and foreign high-risk inspections. Next slide. So focusing on data modernization and enhanced technologies, the FDA has really put an emphasis on their emerging technologies program, the ETP. Its related team is the ETT, or Emerging Technologies Team. CDER's OPQ created this to evaluate emerging technologies and to really promote the adoption of innovative approaches with pharma when it comes to like product design, manufacturing, and other disruptive type technologies. So through this program, industry reps can meet with regulatory personnel on the agency side regarding the development and implementation of novel technologies prior to filing a regulatory submission. So now more than ever, novel product technology and manufacturing processes, as well as control strategies really, and leveraging those technologies speed up a lot of the time it takes to manufacture critical life-saving drugs. So since these disruptive technologies are not really accounted for when reviewing existing agency guidances or policies or practices, the ETP is really instrumental in helping remove those types of regulatory barriers. The resources and collaborative environment brought about by the ETP has helped industry adopt and assimilate a lot of these new technologies in a compliant fashion. And these additional funds and focus will undoubtedly help and increase the bandwidth of the ETP. So with that being said, please keep in mind that the FDA is still the FDA. So knowing how and when to interact with the agency is key to successful collaboration. Another area receiving increased funding is AI assessments. So in May of 2020, just 34% of respondents to a National Association of Manufacturers survey expressed optimism about their company's future due to supply chain issues. 34% were optimistic. So I think everyone remembers the challenges and bleak feelings in 2020 when COVID created insane supply chain disruptions. We had shelter-in-place orders that were shutting down factory floors. API and suppliers were at a standstill. So take all those supply chain issues, with some of them still ongoing, realized through that pandemic, and take into account how hard they've hit every manufacturer. FDA has put increased emphasis and funding on the AI assessment as a crucial step in trying to help address both the existing and future potential weaknesses that we felt during that pandemic in 2020. Now, the AI assessment technology is related to exploring, hardening, and identifying a lot of the new supply chain logistics well beyond just optimization. These models can do things like accurately predict unforeseen issues ahead of them happening, while also identifying solutions like novel supply chain participants or combating shortages and supply chain choke points. Now, both ETP and AI assessment funding will lead to an increase in the ability to overcome some of these hurdles that manufacturers are facing. But when you take into account the other incentives, like the HHS's focus on increasing domestic API production through onshoring and other initiatives and incentives, this makes for a really great environment for product and facility development. Now, this has also led to one of the largest bottlenecks the agency has ever faced, and that's with inspections. So next slide. Now, inspections obviously are the most important aspect of a manufacturer's success in having positive standing with the agency. And in March of 2020, right as the pandemic began, everyone remembers when the FDA paused all foreign and, well, almost all foreign and domestic inspections. And not being able to inspect these facilities has created an unprecedented backlog with the agency, and it's been struggling to really keep up ever since then. So the increase in funding across foreign, unannounced, and high-risk inspections is really going to help expand the reach of the agency and their inspectors, but not without the use of technology and an increase in headcount. So as of today, the foreign unannounced inspections, which were previously halted, have resumed to a degree, but the committed and included additional $5 million above the fiscal 2021 level of funding is going to help continue implementing programs which would increase short notice and unannounced inspections in India with a similar program in China. This funding includes a $3.5 million earmark to restart the foreign unannounced inspection pilot in India. Now, that pilot program was started in 2013 with the same elimination of advance notice, even to the extent that FDA inspectors' travel plans were arranged through embassies and other types of non-manufacturer arranged plans to provide more secrecy in the lead up to inspections. Now, it might seem like a very small change, but I think everybody remembers 2013's OAI findings, where data integrity and other really large focuses were kicked off. So while the funding clearly shows the FDA and Congress mean business with getting inspections done, Congress is very clear in its desire for the agency to prove that it can conduct these hybrid and remote inspections just as effectively as in person. So Congress essentially wants the agency to not replace the proven model of in-person inspections until the data supports even contemplating doing so. But in the immediate term, we are seeing and entirely expect the FDA to use a hybrid inspectional model to limit the amount of time on site. Now, given the previous success of this initiative, I don't think it'll be long until Congress will sing the praises of remote inspections fully. Now, with the likelihood of this program being brought back, and with the likelihood of that really being imminent, given the $5 million increase in funding, being prepared for this new era of inspections is more important than ever. Next slide. Excuse me, the foreign high-risk inspections, the agency has developed and implemented like this targeted risk-based effective inspection model to accommodate all the continued risks to travelability due to ongoing issues with the pandemic. Now, the agency is using these tools to enable them to conduct more inspections using less budget and removing some of the largest barriers challenging the agency in tackling the backlog of the high risk and for cause inspections like pre-approvals and routine inspections. Now, the application of funds to enable these new models to perform foreign high risk inspections will enable the agency to quickly clear the backlog once fully enabled. But again, the committee has been crystal clear they want the data to support this fully in order for them to really bless and accept this approach. Now, with the passage of the FDA Safety and Innovation Act, or FDA-ASIA, which was ratified, Section 706 allows the FDA to request records in advance or in lieu of an on-site established establishment inspection. So that's kind of what I meant with the hybrid model. Congress enacted this provision to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the inspections given the backlog and also the globalization of drug production. So this enhancement to inspectional authority gives the FDA a really effective tool in ensuring the agency gets a clear picture of a firm's actual state of compliance, where the owner and operator of a foreign facility, for example, if they delay, refuse, or not in any way permit the either record request or inspection, it's treated just as a failure to inspect, and all their products are deemed as adulterated. So the increase in funding and the changes enabling the agency to conduct these inspections faster, more in-depth, and easier than before is both a great relief and of great concern to manufacturers depending on where they are in their level of preparedness. But being prepared for the new approach and the technology the agency will be using is going to be paramount to continued success with the agency. Next slide. So that brings me to a big point, really. And per the FDA, they remain committed and have announced that they're committed to using all available tools to oversee the safety and quality of their regulated products for American patients and consumers. So being prepared for this new way of inspections with the agency, both in supplementing inspections using the doc and records request and full-on remote inspections, is no longer a nice to have, it's really a must. Understanding and preparing on how the remote inspection will take place, the aspects of the technology, and how the FDA will inspect remotely, adopting this to their QSIT inspectional model, is really going to determine your success or failure in this. Understanding how to utilize your front room and your back room, your scribes, your runners, are the key differences that will be the key differentiator rather between a successful inspection and a large remediation effort. Now, pressure testing your FDA readiness by having a mock FDA inspection is one of the best ways I've found to be able to get a baseline understanding on your remote inspectional readiness, assessing the current likelihood of having a successful remote inspection, essentially. And then based on that performance and your team's performance in that inspection, the continued use of virtual inspection technology to help train and augment any deficiencies found with employees or facilities so they can learn in real time until the issues are remediated. Now, understanding and preparing for how this will take place, how they will essentially conduct these remote inspections is going to be important, but without first understanding how the agency is going to do it, it'll be next to impossible. Next slide. And with that, I'll pass it on to Devin for the technology.
Thanks so much, Eric. Obviously, given the current environment with the FDA, the need for preparation is higher than ever before. And I think the challenges involved due to the travel restrictions that COVID has imposed make it more difficult than ever to be prepared for the inevitable. This is where Avatour and similar technologies can help. Avatour is a unique 360 communications platform that is really designed to capture an entire space rather than just a face. It is well suited for inspections and audits and gives the remote viewers the ability to choose what they view and be able to see the entire context of the location. And we'll show you an example shortly. Next slide, please. First, just a little bit of background on how Avatour works. Remote users of the Avatour product are able to join a session using a web browser on any device, laptop, desktop, mobile, or using an optional VR headset like this one here. In either case, they're able to see the entire space and have access to useful tools. You have a full 360-degree view of the space. You can zoom in to capture more details. You have the ability to capture snapshots of the space during the course of the session, either in a standard square format or using a full 360 format. So as you're reviewing a facility, you can take a number of 360 views throughout the session that allow you to go back and review the layout and the other aspects of the space. And indeed, you can do a recording of the full session for later review, which can be particularly useful when you have consultants like the RCA team providing feedback on how you can improve those processes and ensure compliance. And it's worth noting that up to 20 remote users can have access at the same time, each of them controlling their own point of view. So you, in many cases, might have multiple domain experts, both inside and outside the company, who might be able to contribute to this, to a readiness review, or even to an audit itself. And all of those individuals have the ability to look independently at the space at the same time. And we'll show you that in a second. Next slide, please. The hardware that goes on site is inexpensive off-the-shelf hardware that we have built software against. So we're a software company. You can think of us similar to Zoom or Skype. We build a platform in the cloud that enables the communication. And we work with our hardware partners to provide easy-to-use experience for the on-site personnel. So this is an example of the hardware here. We are happy to ship it to a site, or you can purchase it and keep it on site. In a complete kit that includes all the content that you need. It's designed to be easy to use by non-technical personnel, portable, battery powered, and connects via standard Wi-Fi or LTE. You need a minimum of about 1 megabit per second. So just about any consistent internet connection is sufficient to run Avatour. And I'll show you how we optimize for even low bandwidth connections during the demo. Next slide, please. A final note before we show the demo, obviously security and privacy are crucial, especially for these sorts of mission critical and indeed, sometimes involving trade secret activities. Avatour was designed from the start to meet the standards of the life sciences industry, including persistent data encrypted both in transit and at rest using 256-bit encryption. All video and audio streams are fully encrypted. Session recordings are encrypted at rest, so they do require encryption keys that can be different for different customers. And we support single sign-on, and for privacy, we are GDPR compliant as well. We can even provide, for extremely high security situations, a hybrid cloud model where all of the video and audio transmission occurs on your own virtual private network. And of course, for agencies and such, that can be a requirement. Next slide, please. I think we go to the demo now. Great. So I'm playing the role of the on-site operator, and I have the Avatour hardware here, and it's already set up with the session running. So now I'm going to hand off to Jenna and Eric, who will be playing the role of the remote users. I'm actually in New York State right now, so they're across the country, and they'll be joining, showing you what it looks like to join remotely. So Jenna, I'll hand off to you to take over the screen and talk through what this looks like. So Jenna's joining on the Avatour website. This is one way of joining. This is a non-authenticated login. Of course, for secure applications, we would require a login. In this case, it's just a code, so it's quite simple. She's joining the session now. And yeah, we're muting the mic on the Avatour session just to avoid any audio feedback here, since we're running multiple sessions at the same time. Oh, and there's our FDA inspector as well. So now, as you can see, Jenna has the ability to click and drag and look around the entire space. She can look up and look down. And indeed, Eric is doing the same thing at the same time. Jenna, would you turn on the POV view so we can see what Eric's doing? So you have the ability to show what other users, there we go. So you see Eric's looking in the corner. I don't know, he's looking at my backpack over there. I don't know what he's worried about in my backpack. Nothing in there, I swear. Now, you also have the ability to zoom. So you can zoom in to see more detail. And as you can see, this is a digital zoom, but we actually are providing 4K of visual detail. So there is more detail than you can normally see in a web browser. So when you zoom, it's not, you're not just blowing up pixels. There is actually some more detail to see there. A couple other features to highlight. For document review, which is often an important part of a session, we can provide a secondary camera which provides a detailed view. And Jenna and the other providers have the ability to resize this, blow it up, and of course I can, zoom in on these devices. And at the same time that you're reviewing the documents, you still have the 360 feed, so you still have the ability to look around and, get a sense of what's going on in the room. Sometimes there's body language or other interactions that you want to see while this document review is going on.
Absolutely, and I can't stress enough, Devin, how important it is to have the document review portion of that available, whether it be a lab notebook or a handwritten validation tag. That's one of the key important factors in being able to have that. I know everyone's meeting has most likely tried doing this with a cell phone in Microsoft Teams or holding up a laptop, and it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, and with our inspection kit, we actually ship it with a dedicated document camera, which makes this that even simpler. So let's get up and walk around a little bit. I want to show you how things work with Avatour under when we go and review a space, which is really where what the software excels at. So we're going to go for a little walk. And Eric, as our inspector, maybe you can tell me what you'd like to see as we visit this space.
Actually, if you could pause briefly there, I'm just going to take a quick look at something. All right, you can continue.
Okay. So one of the things that you're noticing is that as I move through the space, technically speaking, the frame rate actually drops. So it looks a little bit stuttery, almost like a slideshow. This is a feature, not a bug. We're running at a relatively low bit rate of 3 megabits. And in order to maintain quality while we're moving, we drop the frame rate. So this enables us to use more bits during each frame and preserve more visual quality even under low bandwidth conditions.
I'd like to take a quick look behind the staircase there, if you could just make it a little closer over there.
Sure thing. We'll take you down here. And in fact, I can extend this device here so I can actually give you a look well below here. You can inspect our fire safety implementation under the stairs.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay. And one other thing I'll point out is sort of subtle but really important to maintaining a quality experience. We stabilize the video view in all 3 roll axes. And what that means is that even as the camera rotates as I'm carrying it, the view is stabilized such that for the remote viewer, they still keep looking at the thing they were seeing. This is a big contrast to waving a camera around as you're trying to look through a space where every move of the user or of the operator really changes what you see. And because we're capturing in 360, we're able to compensate for that through that roll stabilization.
One other thing I wanted to mention is if you have multiple either internal auditors, let's say you're doing a supplier quality audit or you are doing a mock inspection, I can actually see where Jenna's looking as well. So that feature can kind of be turned independently on and off from each other and either be beknownst or unbeknownst to the host. So when it comes down to being able to get as close as you can to really mirroring the QSIN inspectional model and the feel of an investigation, where you look at another auditor, for example, and kind of give them that nod that means, hey, look over here, I found something. You still have those nuances and they're not lost in doing it remotely.
That's right. So this is just a short overview of the system. There's a bunch of other features we don't have time to get into, but I think it helps to illustrate the core value of being able to see the whole space rather than just a little portion of it. So with that, I think we'll move on. I know we have just a few minutes left. Move on to our questions and answers. And I will hand off to Jenna, I guess, to manage that process.
Yes. All right. So Thank you everyone for joining our webinar and viewing the Avatour demonstration. If you would like to talk offline about your confidential project, RCA and Avatour have created a joint offering to gauge your readiness for internal and external audits. At this time, we would like to begin question and answer portion of our session with Eric and Devin. We have several questions that have been received in our chat box. So let's start. All right. So first question is, what if a facility doesn't have good connectivity?
So I'll take this one. Connectivity is often a challenge. We do our best to help our clients manage that. We typically ship our kit with a hotspot that has an international SIM that uses multiple operators in 210 countries around the world. So even in places like Ghana or Bangladesh, where we're working with companies like USP and the WHO, we are able to provide a connection. Another challenge is that sometimes a connection is not, even when you have a connection, it's not a great connection. And as I showed, we really do our best to manage, even under challenging bandwidth conditions, to optimize for visual quality over frame rate and be able to maintain an audio connection while you're looking at those visual images. Now, it can be the case that there is no connectivity at all at some locations. Were that to be the case, then you can do an offline recording and then upload that later. And in that case, I think the 360 technology is really valuable because, I'm sure if you've ever tried to have somebody record, even if you're buying a house or something, you have somebody walk through with a phone trying to record it. They never catch what it was that you wanted to see, right, when they walk through a room. And with 360, that's much less of a risk. So there is that option, even if you have no connectivity at all.
Thank you, Devin. Next question is, how would we use the VR headset during an inspection?
The VR headset is interesting. Some of our customers use it. About maybe 15% of our customers use it. I think it's best, it's most useful for getting the sense of a space, the sort of geometry of a space. It's really useful for architects and for consultants who are doing time and motion studies and these sorts of things. I think for these kinds of inspections, the VR headset is less, maybe offers a little less utility than it does in other applications, because these are very sort of analytical operations where you're going through a checklist. So this is quite, it's quite optional, I guess I would say.
Okay. Eric, I think this one's for you. Is there an FDA inspection that sites have this technology? Is there an FDA inspection expectation that sites have this technology?
No, there's not an expectation that sites have this technology. In the most recently passed guidance, there were a few call outs for conduits to remote inspectional technology such as this, such as Microsoft Teams. But this technology specifically is not being requested by the agency. The agency has to maintain a neutral stance, and by recommending something kind of universal that a lot of things can plug into, such as Teams, that allows for them not to have favor for any one particular company, I guess, aside from Microsoft. I see a couple other questions, actually. If I see one that came in as a direct message to me, so I'm just going to read this out loud really quickly. My apologies. But I'm sorry, I just lost it right there. I think this one is for Devin. What is the luminary light level for optimal viewing and clear reading when reviewing documents with a doc reader? I mean, I know it has a light built in, but.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I would have to go. I would have to go to our specs to figure that out. But yeah, the document camera that we ship actually has a light built into it to help illuminate the document. So we generally get good results, even if the ambient light's not terrific. But if you want to share your email address, I'm happy to provide more details by email.
There's another one that came into me and it asked, do you know if FDA has experience using this now with the remote approach? And if so, what are the overall outcomes and results? The FDA and the EMA have both been using remote inspectional technology through pilot programs. Now, EMA has been a lot more vocal about it. So EMA, for example, and this is public record and information, so I can share this as it's not confidential, but inspected Thermo Fisher's plant actually using this specific technology. And it was something that the EMA inspectors heralded as fantastic, that they could do that from their own home office and do everything as they would have normally. Now, the FDA is a bit more shrouded in this, so they've announced that they have been using this to varying degrees, but not specifically which companies. Now, we can expect that because of the harmonization efforts between EMA and FDA, that because EMA is a couple steps ahead in adopting this technology, specifically Avatour, we can expect FDA to follow suit very quickly. And then there's one more question that just came into me, just to remind you guys that the Q&A panel as well there, just to go ahead and use that, my apologies. If two inspectors are on different locations, can they interact without giving participation to the auditee? So yes, the inspectors can interact with each other without having to use Avatour, for example. Let's say that they were in separate locations. Just as you guys in your front rooms and back rooms oftentimes use instant messaging programs or emails or even cell phones, that's still 100% available as an outside technology. I do also believe, and Devin might be able to elaborate on what the independent private messaging is in terms of capabilities as well.
Sorry, I was actually responding to a chat that was sent privately to me. Could you repeat the question for me?
Not a problem. So the question was, can the two inspectors in different locations, but using Avatour, interact without giving note to the auditee, meaning the people hosting?
Yes, we will have the ability to disable the what do you call the collaboration tools except for the authorized users. So this is not in the current version of the product, but it's coming very soon. This is a question we've heard already.
Definitely. And lastly is one that came into me. Is there an SDK available for our attendees to integrate Avatour within their own products? Example, a simple use case is to have a side-by-side view using Avatour 360 stream on the left and their own live interaction module on the right.
We are working on an SDK. It's quite preliminary at the moment, I'd say, but it is part of our overall product roadmap, and we're very interested in talking to partners for these kinds of integrations because at this point we're in the design phase for the SDK, and so it's very, very useful for us to hear what people want. So please do, give me a way to get in touch with you, whoever that was. I'd love to talk further about your use case.
And there's one more question here. Is the market expectation that manufacturers outfit themselves with this package and ship it around to their suppliers? And I guess for internal use, you can absolutely. I have clients that have done that for supplier quality audits, for example. A heck of a lot cheaper than sending a bunch of people, not to mention the ability to send it or not send it. I have one client actually that has a few different kits in each of their facilities, so they don't have to worry about the related logistics. So if they need to host in one or the other, they're prepared to do that. And obviously you can join from just about anywhere, but good question.
Thank you, guys. So due to time restraints, this has been our final question for our session today. You can always follow up over email. You will be receiving an email in the next few days that will include a recording of our session you can watch on demand. Thank you again for attending our Preparing for an FDA Virtual Audit webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.